Under the blazing sun of a remote desert base, a convoy of armored trucks rolled through the dust, carrying a team of elite agents tasked with a mission so classified even the Pentagon had no name for it. Among them was a young woman named Captain Riley Stone, the only female operative in the team and the one everyone underestimated. Her calm demeanor, her quiet steps, and her sharp eyes often made people wonder how she ended up among the toughest soldiers in the unit, but they didn't know her past. They didn't know she had survived war zones where no one else made it out alive. The convoy moved toward an abandoned fortress that satellite images revealed to be an arms smuggling hub deep in hostile territory. Their orders were simple: infiltrate, retrieve the stolen data, and get out alive. But the desert had other plans. Halfway through the mission, their convoy hit an improvised explosive device. The first truck flipped, the second burst into flames, and the third one, carrying Riley, was thrown sideways as chaos erupted. Bullets rained down from the cliffs surrounding them. The team scrambled for cover, shouting commands and returning fire, but the enemy was everywhere. Their ambush was perfect. Riley crawled behind the wreck of the truck, pulling her sniper rifle from the debris. The heat blurred her vision, the smoke burned her lungs, but her focus was absolute. She picked her targets one by one, dropping enemies with surgical precision. Her movements were like poetry in motion, no hesitation, no waste of breath. But then the radio crackled. Lieutenant Harris, her commanding officer, shouted that the intel briefcase had been taken by the enemy. A group of armed men was retreating with it toward a hidden tunnel beneath the fortress. Riley sprinted across the battlefield, bullets whizzing past her as she dived behind broken walls. She saw them disappearing into the tunnel and followed quietly, her heart pounding but her mind razor sharp. The tunnel was dark, lit only by flickering lamps on rusted walls. She moved like a shadow until she reached a large chamber where a group of armed mercenaries were gathered. One of them was holding the briefcase, another had a gun pointed at a captured American soldier. Riley froze for a moment, calculating her odds. Then she stepped out with her gun raised. "Drop it," she commanded, her voice steady even though her pulse was racing. They turned, startled by her sudden appearance. One of them smirked. "You're alone," he said. "You really think you can stop us?" She didn't answer. She just aimed higher and fired. The light went out, plunging the room into darkness. In that instant she moved silently, changing positions, each muzzle flash revealing a new target. Her bullets found them before they even realized where she was. The echoes of gunfire bounced off the walls like thunder. When the lights flickered back on, every mercenary was down except one, the leader, tall, muscular, with a scar running down his cheek, grabbed the soldier and pressed his gun to her head. "One more step and she dies," he shouted. Riley stood still, sweat dripping down her neck. She could see his finger tightening on the trigger. Then she whispered softly, "Do you believe in luck?" Before he could respond, she shifted her stance, fired a single shot. The bullet ricocheted off a hanging metal plate and hit his wrist. The gun fell from his hand. She fired again, this time straight through his shoulder. He fell backward, releasing the hostage. She ran forward, grabbing the briefcase, but before she could breathe a sigh of relief, the man lunged for a hidden pistol. He aimed it at her head and fired. The shot grazed her ear, but she didn't flinch. She rolled aside, came up in a single fluid motion, and fired 3 rounds. In under a second he collapsed to the floor. Silence filled the room. Her hands shook slightly as adrenaline faded. She picked up the briefcase and turned to the rescued soldier. "Are you all right?" she asked. The soldier nodded, barely holding back tears. "You just saved my life." Riley smiled faintly. "Let's get out of here." Outside, the battle was still raging. The sun had begun to set, painting the desert in shades of crimson. She radioed for evac, but the signal was weak. They had to reach higher ground. She led the way through collapsing walls, dodging explosions and enemy fire, every step a test of will. When they finally reached a ridge overlooking the battlefield, they saw the extraction chopper hovering in the distance. Riley signaled with a flare and the pilot began to descend. Suddenly a sniper's bullet ripped through the air, missing her by inches. She spotted the glint of a scope on a nearby cliff. Without hesitation she pulled out her own rifle, dropped to her knee and took aim. Her breath slowed, her fingers squeezed the trigger. The enemy sniper's scope shattered and his body fell backward. Riley exhaled slowly, slowly then helped the soldier into the chopper. As it lifted off, she looked down at the smoking ruins of the fortress, her mind replaying the chaos, the faces, the danger. For a moment she felt the weight of it all pressing on her chest. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, one mission at a time, that's how we survive. Days later, at the military command center, she stood before her superiors. The general looked at her file and said, "You were outnumbered, outgunned, and had no backup. How did you manage to retrieve the intel?" Riley looked at him, her eyes steady. "Because they pressed a gun to my head, sir, and I had no choice but to blow everyone away in seconds." Silence filled the room. Then the general nodded slowly. "You've just rewritten the manual on survival, Captain Stone. From that day her name became legend, whispered among soldiers as the woman who never missed under pressure, the one who turned fear into fire and walked away from death like it was just another mission." As the world moved on, she remained the same, calm, silent, and unbreakable. The desert wind carried her story across generations, reminding everyone that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's facing death and still pulling the trigger when the world counts you out. She proved that sometimes the quietest one in the room is the one you should fear the most. Her legend became part of history, the kind told around campfires in military bases where new recruits listened in awe, dreaming to be like her. And somewhere far away, Captain Riley Stone kept training, ready for the next mission, because heroes like her never stop, they just wait for the next storm.